The studio lights shimmered like always. Applause echoed across the room as Harrison Ford walked onto the set of The View. The audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering for the Hollywood icon. Dressed in a dark blazer and jeans, Harrison gave a slight wave in his signature smirk. But anyone looking closely could tell he wasn't in the mood for small talk. He sat between Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, the smile fading quickly. His eyes scanned the room like a man preparing for a storm. "Let's talk legacy." Whoopi began with a smile. "You've been Indiana Jones, Han Solo? What's left for a man who's done it all?" Harrison chuckled, but it was dry and bitter. "I'm not trying to do it all anymore," he replied. "I'm just trying to survive another press tour without saying something I'll regret." The audience laughed, unsure if it was a joke or a warning. Whoopi kept going, trying to steer things back to friendly ground. "You've always been the strong, silent type. Do you think today's generation still connects with that kind of character?" Harrison's expression sharpened. If Hollywood would stop recycling everything, maybe today's generation could connect with something new. There was a pause. The mood shifted. The air in the studio suddenly felt tighter. Sunny Hostin stepped in with her usual directness. "But don't you think your generation helped create this culture of nostalgia? I mean, these franchises keep going because people still want them." That was the moment it cracked. Harrison turned toward her slowly. His voice dropped just a little. "My generation built stories. Yours is tearing them apart, one hot take at a time." The silence that followed was heavy. Joy Behar tried to make a joke about cranky old men, but it didn't land. Whoopi's smile faded. She leaned in and said, "You think we're the problem? We're the ones still trying to have real conversations in a world where people like you walk away when things get uncomfortable." Harrison didn't blink. "Uncomfortable," he repeated. "You mean honest? You mean the kind of honesty that doesn't get applause? The kind you can't sell in a commercial break?" Whoopi fired back. "We've all got scars, Harrison. The difference is we stay at the table and do the work." His hands tightened on his lap. His jaw clenched. Then slowly he looked around the room, at the lights, the cameras, the quiet audience, now watching like statues. "I've done the work," he said. "Varied friends. Stayed quiet while this industry turned stories into noise. I'm here listening to a panel show explain emotional labor to a man who gave everything to this business." And then he stood. No yelling, no drama, just a clean movement. He pulled off his mic. The soft click echoed. He looked once at Whoopi, then turned and walked off the set. The room froze. A few people clapped weakly. Most sat in stunned silence. Behind the scenes, a junior producer holding a headset watched Harrison pass. The actor moved fast, but before he disappeared through the exit, the producer heard him mutter under his breath, "You don't want to know what I buried for them in '83? The words made her skin crawl. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Hashtags like #Harrison vs. Whoopi and #View Meltdown trended globally. News sites published headlines within the hour. Ford walks out on The View, calls out industry hypocrisy, Hollywood legend, or bitter icon. Memes flooded Twitter. Clips from the episode hit TikTok. But it wasn't just about the argument anymore. It was what he said on the way out. What happened in 1983? Who did he bury it for? And why now? Something deeper had cracked open and the world was watching. The video of Harrison Ford storming off The View had crossed 50 million views by the next morning. News anchors speculated. Podcasts dissected every line. Panel shows tried to spin it, some defending Whoopi, others calling Ford a hero for speaking uncomfortable truths. But one question cut through all the noise like a blade. What did Harrison Ford mean by what I buried for them in '83? That line, almost whispered off camera, was now plastered across news tickers around the globe. In a cramped, windowless newsroom at a mid-tier online outlet, investigative journalist Lena Voss froze when she heard it. she had grown up watching. Ford's movies, classic tales of adventure, bravery, and justice. But what she heard in his voice wasn't nostalgia. It was regret. Lena worked for Fourth Frame, a small but rising media platform known for chasing government corruption. She'd covered everything from data leaks to shady defense contracts. But this felt different, intimate, dangerous. She started digging. Right. Into the night, Lena found an obscure CIA reference from a 1983 operations log. Declassified only months earlier under pressure from FOIA watchdog groups. It mentioned something vague. Operation Echo. Asset secured. Civilian cover intact. HF approved. HF, her heart skipped. She found a photo from a Cold War morale film produced by the U.S. Army in 1983. A grainy still. The actor was facing away from the camera, but the profile it looked a lot like a young Harrison Ford. Could it be? Meanwhile, back in L.A., Harrison stayed silent. He had turned off his phone. No press statements, no interviews. His agent told reporters he was off-grid, but a student filmmaker named Owen Price, who once interviewed Ford for a USC documentary project, posted a short video on YouTube that same afternoon. It showed Ford sitting in a flannel shirt in what looked like a log cabin. The fire behind him crackled softly. He stared into the lens, exhausted but calm. "I walked off," he said, "because I knew if I stayed, I'd say something I couldn't take back. That's not weakness. That's restraint." The clip went viral. Celebrities reposted it. Some praised his honesty. Others warned he was losing control of his legacy. But none dared ask what he almost said, except Lena. She found a second document deep inside an archived Department of Defense bulletin. It listed a closed military psychological operations campaign known as Project Helios. The goal: influence public morale during escalating Cold War tensions in Central America. The method: short films disguised as Hollywood entertainment, featuring major actors sometimes without their full knowledge of the operation's purpose. She stared at the list. Most names were blacked out. But one detail caught her eye. All participants signed under press immunity clauses sealed for 50 years. Full disclosure, legally punishable. Harrison had been part of something never meant to be spoken about. Lena called her editor. "I think I found something, but it's big. If I'm right, it involves government propaganda using celebrities during the Cold War, and Harrison Ford was one of them." The editor hesitated. "Do you have proof?" "Not yet," she said. "But if I get it, we're not just talking about a celebrity walk-off. We're talking about history being rewritten in real time." Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the Montana wilderness, Ford watched the chaos from a burner laptop. He knew this would happen. He'd kept the truth buried for decades. He'd told himself it was necessary, that it was part of doing his duty during a time when America needed symbols more than facts. But the guilt had grown heavier with each passing year. And now, as the world seemed to spiral into chaos, again, he could feel that same old machine grinding its gears, ready to spin lies into comfort. He opened a drawer. Inside was a dusty VHS tape marked in red ink. Echo Reel Final Cut. His finger hovered over the play button. The ghosts of 1983 were waking up. And someone, somewhere, was watching too. Lena Voss had seen enough strange coincidences in her career to know when something wasn't a coincidence anymore. After 2 nights of digging, a pattern began to form. Obscure military-funded film projects from the early 80s. Propaganda. Films masked as entertainment. Psychological operations that blurred the line between storytelling and state messaging. And one consistent shadow at the edge of every document, every film still, every memo. Harrison Ford, the deeper she went, the more things started vanishing. An archived interview with a government psychologist who'd worked on Operation Echo suddenly went 400 for not found. A rare film called Echo Run, allegedly financed by a now-defunct government media unit, was pulled offline. A former assistant director listed in the film's credits, dead, heart attack, just last month. This wasn't just a forgotten program. It was a buried one, deliberately. Meanwhile, public tension around Ford's exit from The View hadn't died down. It had morphed. What started as celebrity gossip was now fueling conspiracy forums and underground news sites. And it was about to get worse. That evening, Lena received a package at her apartment. No return address. Inside, an old-fashioned film canister and a note. Be careful what you dig. Some stories weren't made to be told. The handwriting was tight, clean, no name. She stared at the canister. Was labeled Echo Session 7, Do Not Air. Lena's heart pounded as she set it in her projector. The film rolled, crackling softly. It opened with a military briefing, grainy, black and white, with generals sitting in shadowed chairs. The camera cut suddenly to a man in a flight jacket, sitting at a fake bar in what looked like a studio stage set to resemble Central America. Harrison Ford. He was reading a script, saying lines with patriotic conviction. But behind his eyes, even through the blur of analog footage, Lena could see something else. Confusion, doubt, like a man who knew he wasn't just acting anymore. The segment cut to another screen, overlaying his face with maps of geopolitical hotspots narrated by a monotone voice. American values delivered through trusted faces can stabilize wavering regions. Media is not just entertainment, it is strategy. Lena froze. This wasn't fiction. This was proof. Back in Montana, Harrison sat in silence, the old VHS tape still spinning inside the dusty player. He watched as younger versions of himself led fictional battles for liberty, battles that were later echoed almost identically in real world conflicts the public never questioned. He remembered the day in 1983 when a man in a government suit told him, "You don't need to understand it. Mr. Ford, just deliver it the way you always do. Like it matters." He had said yes. He had told himself it was harmless, patriotic, useful even. Now, he wasn't sure what it was. His phone vibrated. A private signal. Only one person still had the number: Glenmore, the old intelligence contact who'd promised to disappear long ago. The message was short. They know you kept the real. And she has it now. Lena Ford stood up, rushed outside, and started his truck. Gravel kicked beneath the tires. The past had waited for too long, and now it was chasing the future down a dark road. Back in New York, Lena uploaded a digital copy of the reel to a secure drive and called her editor. "I have footage," she said. Harrison Ford was part of a government influence operation. He wasn't alone. "You sure? It's real?" the editor asked, voice low. "I'm sure. And if I disappear tomorrow, tell the world this is bigger than one actor walking off a show. This is decades of history wrapped in movie scripts." Outside her window, headlights flashed in the street. A black SUV slowed as it passed. The storm wasn't coming, was already here. The SUV didn't stop, but Lena knew what it meant. Someone was watching. She closed her laptop, double-checked the drive with the echo footage, and slid it into a small envelope. Her hands were steady, but her pulse was hammering. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was real. Whatever was on that reel, whatever Harrison Ford had kept hidden for 4 decades, had stirred something awake. And now they wanted it back. She took a breath, grabbed her coat, and slipped out the back door of her apartment. 3 blocks away, a man sat in a parked sedan with tinted windows, earpiece in, phone open. He watched her shadow disappear into the alley and made a call. "She's on the move." In Montana, Harrison Ford was already halfway down the mountain. His old pickup truck rattled as it sped over frostbitten roads. Snow clung to the edges of the windshield. The years had slowed him down, but the urgency in his gut that hadn't aged a day. He wasn't running anymore. Was going to protect her. The last time he saw. Glenmore was 2006. A hospital room in D.C. Quiet, tense. Glenmore. had survived a car bomb meant for someone else? That night, he told Harrison what Echo really was. We weren't just selling ideas overseas. We were testing how deep we could bury the truth at home. Ford had left acting for a year after that. When he came back, the roles were different. Angrier, less polished. It wasn't about the script anymore. It was about telling the truth between the lines. But he never spoke of Echo again. Not until The View, and now everything was unraveling. Lena reached a quiet corner cafe near Chinatown. It was the kind of place no one paid attention, too perfect for an emergency handoff. She tucked the drive under a napkin in a sugar bowl and sent a message to her colleague in Toronto. Backup insurance. A voice startled her. "You're getting too good at this?" She turned. Harrison Ford stood at the door, soaked from the sleet, eyes sharper than she'd seen on any screen. Lena blinked. "You're here." He nodded. "You? Found the reel?" She hesitated. "Yes. I saw everything." Ford sat across from her. No smile, no charm, just raw honesty. "I was told it was a morale program," he said. "That we were helping America tell its story better than the Soviets ever could. But they lied. We weren't actors. We were weapons." Lena leaned in. "Why now? Why did you say something on The View?" Ford looked away for a long moment. Then quietly, "Because I watched the news last week. A senator quoted a line from Echo Run during a NATO briefing and nobody even noticed. We're still feeding people the same scripts. I thought if I said something, even a crack, someone might listen." Lena's eyes met his. "I listened." Their moment was cut short when the bell over the cafe door jingled again. Two men in gray coats stepped in. No menus, no eye contact, just scanning. Ford rose. "We have to move now." Lena grabbed the drive. They slipped out the back door, just as the men reached the counter. Outside, the snow had thickened. Harrison's truck waited in a nearby alley. As they sped off, Lena asked, "What's the end game here?" Ford tightened his grip on the wheel. "You publish it. All of it. Every document, every clip." "Don't wait for permission." She hesitated. "They'll come after me." "They already have," he said. "But they're too late. The truth's been in the open for years. No one wanted to believe it." Lena looked out the window. Sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. Her phone buzzed an encrypted message from her editor. "Whatever you send, it's real. We've got downloads in London, Berlin, and Tel Aviv. They're all watching." Ford glanced at her screen. "Good. Let them watch. 'Cause this wasn't just a buried Cold War operation anymore. This was a reckoning." The drive across the frozen highway was quiet. Harrison focused on the road ahead while Lena scrolled through her phone, watching the world react in real time. The footage had gone global. Her editor had uploaded a redacted version of the Echo. Run Reel to Fourth Frame's main page just hours earlier, along with Lena's report titled "Hollywood, Government, and the Hidden War on Truth." Within minutes, downloads surged. Mirror sites were already popping up. Hashtags like #ProjectEcho, #MediaOps1983, and #TruthInReels trended across every major platform. Mainstream outlets didn't know what to do. CNN called it potentially manipulated vintage footage. Folks said it proved leftist propaganda in media. Al Jazeera simply called it the lost weapon, storytelling as statecraft. But beyond the headlines, a wave of unease began to settle. If what they were seeing was real, if Harrison Ford had unknowingly been used in a government-funded influence operation, what else had they been watching all these years? Who else had been a part of it? "Do you think they'll try to kill the story?" Lena asked, voice low. Ford didn't flinch. "They already tried. That's why I kept the reel." Lena turned to him. "Why did you keep it? After all this time?" He was silent for a moment, then said, "Because it was the only thing that reminded me I wasn't imagining it. The guilt, the silence. I needed to know it happened. That I wasn't just another puppet pretending to act while the world watched." Lies, Lena nodded. She understood now. The walking off set, the silence for years, the way he looked at Whoopi when he said he had done the work. He wasn't just angry, he was broken. Back in New York, chaos had erupted in media circles. Two former producers from 1980s defense film units had gone into hiding. One former studio head had released a statement denying any knowledge of Project Echo. But his name had appeared in Lena's report 3 times. Suddenly, the line between Hollywood and government influence didn't look theoretical. It looked surgical. The White House press secretary held an emergency briefing. "We are reviewing the allegations connected to decades-old projects. At this time, we cannot confirm the authenticity of the materials." And yet, the reel didn't lie. It showed classified budget approvals for morale engagement productions. It showed uniformed officials handing scripts to screenwriters. It showed young, confused actors, some of them stars, today repeating lines meant to shape how Americans felt about war, power, and loyalty. The last reel even showed a script note. Harrison emphasized American sacrifice. Downplay civilian. Collateral. As Lena and Ford arrived at a safe house outside Boise, a news alert popped up on her phone. Breaking. Former U.S. intelligence officer found dead in Virginia. Cabin suspected suicide. Name, Malcolm Glenmore. Lena froze. He was trying to protect you, she said, staring at the screen. Ford said nothing. His eyes had gone distant, colder. "He told me to burn the reel before they found it. I should have listened." But Lena shook her head. "No, this matters. If people see it, maybe they'll start asking questions. Maybe it won't be just a story anymore." Ford gave a tired half smile. "You still believe in the audience." "Have to," she said. "Otherwise, all of this is just another echo." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, snowflakes brushed against the window, like ghosts passing in the night. Then Lena's phone buzzed again. Another encrypted message. She opened it. A video. The face of a man mid-60s, speaking with a British accent, looked straight into the lens. "If you've received this, then you know what Echo really was." But there's more. Echo wasn't just about American minds. It was a test run for something international, and it's still active. Ford leaned over. "What is this?" Lena's eyes widened as the man continued. "They moved it to Europe in 1991, renamed it, embedded it into streaming platforms. They no longer need film reels. They just need algorithms." Ford stood slowly. The war hadn't ended in 1983. It had just gone digital. The man in the video kept speaking, his voice calm but urgent. They called it Project Vesper in Europe. It started in Berlin, merged with early cable television networks, and evolved through media partnerships. The goal was simple: shape ideology through entertainment without anyone noticing. By the early 2000s, they didn't need actors anymore, just content pipelines and predictive algorithms. The screen cut to static. Lena's hands trembled as she turned to Harrison. They never stopped. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. His face said it all. He'd suspected this for years. That the same mechanism behind Echo had adapted, modernized, and spread like a virus, hiding inside every platform we trusted to entertain us. Netflix, YouTube, foreign drama channels, even political talk shows. Influence no longer wore a uniform. It wore a smile, a trending thumbnail, a punchline, and it was still working. "Do you think they'll come for us next?" Lena asked. Ford didn't blink. "They already are." He reached into a small wooden box in the corner of the safe house and pulled out a rusted key. Inside the floorboards, he opened a hidden drawer containing a stack of tapes, sealed documents, and a small flash drive. "This," he said, holding up the drive, "is the original pitch deck for Project Vesper. Glenmore gave it to me before he vanished the first time." Lena stared at it. "Why didn't you give it to anyone?" "I did. Once. 2009. A young congressman from California. Promised he'd get it investigated. A week later, he dropped. Out of politics. Said he wanted to spend more time with family. I got the message. He handed it to her. But you're not in anyone's pocket. Not yet. Meanwhile, in Washington, the Department of Information Security, an obscure agency created in 2012, was in full lockdown. 2 monitors flickered as officials watched Lena's article tear through the global media ecosystem. One senior agent barked into his headset. Do we have eyes on Voss and Ford? No, sir, came the reply. They've gone dark. Last ping came from Boise. Activate. Palisade, the agent ordered. That word palisade was an emergency protocol. Its goal: neutralize leaks through digital erasure and media disruption. That meant internet blackouts, coordinated takedowns, algorithm suppression, and, if necessary, permanent resolutions. The agent turned to a colleague. What about the leak? The Vesper files. The other analyst shook his head. Too late. It's on mirrored nodes in Taiwan, Norway, Kenya, and 2 independent blockchain libraries. We can't scrub it all. He exhaled. Then we pivot to discredit. Psychological War, Phase 2. Back in the cabin, Lena was uploading the Vesper files to her secure cloud. But as she did, her laptop screen glitched, briefly replaced. By a white logo on black, access blocked US comes code 7V73. They were inside. Shut it down, Ford said, yanking the power cable. Lena cursed. They found us. But I got most of it up before they cut the link. Outside, headlights appeared in the trees. 3 SUVs. Silent, no sirens. Ford stepped away from the window. They're not here to talk. Lena's phone buzzed. One final message from her editor before the signal died. We've lost all channels. DNS blocked. Data frozen. We're locked out. You're on your own. She looked at Ford. What do we do? He loaded a revolver from a case under the table. Then, more softly than she expected, he said, We don't hide. We survive. She nodded. They turned off every light and slipped out the back door into the snow-covered woods, disappearing into shadows before the SUVs rolled up. Inside the safe house, agents stormed the empty rooms. No Lena, no Ford, just an open drawer, a cold laptop, and a single sticky note on the desk. You buried the truth in 1983. We're digging it up in 2025. The war for control over the truth had just gone offline. But it was far from over. The morning after the cabin raid, the world felt ... off. News anchors scrambled to pivot, downplaying Project Echo as debunked conspiracy theater. Social media apps showed content not available on millions of shares. DNS errors appeared on independent news websites. The original video had disappeared from YouTube, Vimeo, and even the encrypted cloud drives Lena once trusted. But too many had seen it. Across Berlin, London, Sao Paulo, and even Islamabad, digital fragments of Echo run. The Vesper pitch deck and Lena's article began to resurface, framed as memes. Discussed in university forums, embedded in game chats. Whispered by activists. And analysts alike were still watching stories written in a war room. Lena and Harrison had vanished. No sightings. No signals. Not even speculation. To some, they were martyrs. To others, ghosts. But in a small village outside Sarajevo, far from networks and noise, 2 hikers in wool caps sat quietly in a stone cottage. Lena watched her fingers move across a typewriter. Yes, a typewriter, because digital was no longer safe. Ford lit a fire and poured coffee into tin cups. His face was still lined with tension, but the weight had shifted. He looked like a man, no longer running, but walking toward something that finally made sense. You really think it matters now? Lena asked, reading back the final page of her manuscript. Ford leaned back in the chair, eyes distant. It always mattered. They just made us forget how much. She nodded. Their next move wasn't a press conference or another viral post. 'Twas print, analog. Physical, they'd send 1,000. Copies of the report by mail-reel, mail-to journalists, professors, whistleblowers, and underground publishers. Truth in envelopes. Truth that couldn't be deleted. 3 weeks later, Lena's manuscript, The Echo Principle, How Governments Programmed Belief Through Storytelling, appeared in a French bookstore window. The backlash was immediate. An international summit on media ethics was held in The Hague. Former studio executives were subpoenaed. The Senate reopened a dormant Intelligence Oversight Committee. A tech company in Amsterdam released a tool that could scan film scripts for embedded influence patterns. And then something unexpected happened. An old clip resurfaced. Not Echo Run, but a recent one. Harrison Ford filmed in that Montana cabin days before they ran. His voice low but clear. They used me, and I let them. I played the hero while. They buried real pain behind fiction. I won't do it anymore. We weren't meant to worship actors. We were meant to listen to each other. The story we need isn't one I tell. It's one we remember together. The clip spread faster than anything the government could censor. It landed like a pulse, shaking even those who'd ignored the earlier reports. Some dismissed him as a disgruntled legend. Others called him the conscience of an industry that had forgotten its purpose. But millions just watched in silence. In New York, Whoopi Goldberg opened The View with a different tone. No applause. No jokes. Just a deep breath and a pause. I don't know where Harrison Ford is, she said. But if you're watching, I hear you now. She held up a single printed page, Lena's article, and we've got work to do. By spring, the story could no longer be erased. Young filmmakers began tagging their scripts. No echo. Independent journalists adopted a code of transparency, listing financial backers on the front page. Even one major studio announced a new division for narrative accountability. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And somewhere in that snowy Bosnian cottage, Lena placed the final typed page into a binder and smiled. The truth always survives, she whispered. Ford glanced over from the fire. Only if someone fights for it. The flames crackled. Outside, the snow had begun to melt.